So, what's up guys, I thought I would do a little review for Paddington number 3, Paddington in Peru. So Paddington in Peru was released in UK cinemas last week, and I went on last Friday and I went to see the film. To be honest, I thought it was really good. I'm not going to spoil the film too much. It basically revolves around Paddington going to Peru to visit his Aunt Lucy. He gets a letter to say that his Aunt Lucy is not doing too well, she's really missing him, and he goes, and then obviously the Browns go to Peru. Obviously Mrs. Brown wants the family to spend more time together, so that obviously they all go out to Peru, and Aunt Lucy, when they get there, they find that Aunt Lucy has left and gone off on some big adventure, and they go to find her. The Browns are lost in the jungle. It's just, it's a really good film, a really good family film, very funny. Obviously we see the obviously Antonio Banderas and Olivia Colman in the film. Olivia Colman actually turns out that Olivia Colman is the villain, plays the villain for the third Paddington film. She plays a character who is disguised as a nun. She's pretending to be a nun. And I think it was kind of obvious from very early on in the film that she was potentially going to be the villain of the film. I don't think she was the best villain for the Paddington film. I think I would have to give that award to the villain from Paddington 2, that being Phoenix Buchanan. Now, what's funny is that we do actually see a cameo appearance from Hugh Grant as Phoenix Buchanan in towards the very end, at the end of the film. To be honest, it kind of got me thinking about Paddington 4 a little bit. Now, I know that we're still a few years, obviously, we know that there's a Paddington TV show in the works, as well as and there's also plans for a full film, which will be released in around 2027 or 2028. Now, I've been thinking about Paddington 4 a little bit, and I've been thinking that what if that cameo appearance from Phoenix Buchanan at the end of the third film, Paddington in Peru, leads to Phoenix actually returning as the villain for Paddington 4. But I think it would be interesting if for Paddington 4 if we didn't actually necessarily see like a new villain, but we saw the return of an old villain, a former villain, that Paddington has kind of had to face before. Whether that be the nun, whether that be Olivia, whether that be Phoenix Buchanan, whether that be the female villain from the first film. I can't remember her name. I can't remember the name of the villain from the first film. But yeah, I think actually I would ask Alexa that. Alexa, who is the villain in the first Paddington film?
Good morning, Perry. Sorry, I don't have an answer for that.
Doesn't know, I guess. I mean, obviously, I think it would be very interesting. I mean, what if we saw the return of all three villains for the fourth film? I mean, I'm not saying I think that Paddington 4 would be the final film, but if it was to be the final film, wouldn't it be cool if they did something like bringing all of the villains back? You know, seeing all of Paddington's former allies, or, you know, friends, you know, kind of coming back as well, those from Windsor Gardens, and obviously the people that he met, obviously his friends from prison, including that was McGinty, of course. I think Paddington 3 is a really, really good film. Now, obviously there was one kind of big glaring omission from this film. Obviously we know that Sally Hawkins left the role of Mrs. Brown, and she was replaced by the actress Emily Mortimer. Now, to be fairly honest with you, I'd never heard of Emily Mortimer before this film came out. I wasn't aware of anything else that she'd been in. I mean, I was very familiar with the other actors, including Hugh Bonneville. I actually love Hugh Bonneville. I think he's such a great character. There is one character we did get to see in this film, Simon Farnaby. Now, I actually wondered if Simon Farnaby was going to be a part of this third film, because he has been in the previous 2 films, and I thought maybe there's a chance we see him in this one. Of course, he was in the third film. It's great to see him in that as well. It's great to see him in it, you know. Again, you know, I'm a big fan of Simon Farnaby due to other shows that he's been in. Obviously Ghosts, I think he was really good in that. Really good in, obviously, Horrible Histories as well. But I think the film, I don't think that, you know, the change of actress who played Mrs. Brown really kind of affected the film too much. I think, you know, it was a good film, you know, regardless of the fact that there was a different actress, you know, playing Mrs. Brown. I think as time goes on, I'll probably get more used to Emily Mortimer playing Mrs. Brown, as I think, you know, a lot of people will still be very used to Sally Hawkins playing Mrs. Brown, but I mean, I certainly don't, you know, I think Emily Mortimer was never going to be as good as Sally Hawkins was in the role of Mrs. Brown. I think Sally Hawkins was absolutely phenomenal in that role. I think she really played that role, you know, played that part, you know, and played the character of Mrs. Brown very, very well. You know, I think Sally Hawkins, I mean, I might be a Sally Hawkins super fan. I think Sally Hawkins was a big part of what made the previous 2 films so good. I mean, do I think that Paddington 3 is movie of the year? I wouldn't say it is, because I think there's a lot of other films that are coming out this year, or are still due to come out this year, which could take that time, which could take that spot, you know. I mean, it looks like it could be potential movie of the year. You know, Mufasa the Lion King looks good, you know, Moana 2 looks really good. So there's a few decent films coming out in the next, you know, month or so. Oh, well, over the next month or so as we close out 2024 and we move into 2025. Also, there's some big films coming out next year as well, I think. So it'd be interesting to see. Obviously, we've got Sonic 3 coming out as well, I think next month that comes out. I may go and watch that. But it does look good, Sonic 3. I think I've watched the previous 2 films, so I would love to go and watch that one as well, just to see what it's like. You know, Paddington 3, I wouldn't say it's a major flop. You know, I think, you know, maybe some people would say that Paddington 3, Paddington in Peru was a major flop, but I don't think it was. Like, I actually think it was interesting to see that a change of setting for the movie this year, and to see them kind of, you know, filming in a different location rather than filming it, you know, around kind of like Windsor Gardens and London and all that kind of thing. You know, I think it's a good family film. If you've not already gone to see Paddington in Peru, I recommend you go and see it. It is in cinemas now. It's a movie that's already got me very excited for what we could potentially see in Paddington number 4. We know that Paddington 4 is still very, kind of in the early planning stages at the moment. We'll probably get a release date announcement for that film around probably, you know, 2025 to 2026. Well, probably not next year, the year after. Yeah, I don't imagine we'll get a release date for it next year. I'm not expecting that, but maybe we could. You know, I mean, Paddington 4. You know, as I said, I would love to see Phoenix Buchanan defeat the villain for number 2. I think it would be really great to see Hugh Grant returning that role. I mean, I mean, it was kind of like a little treat there, seeing him cameo at the end of the film. Like, you know, it was like that little bonus treat for fans, you know, getting to see, you know, a villain of one of the previous movies. You know, and I think it would be interesting if we did get to see a villain like Phoenix Buchanan return in Paddington 4. Like, I feel like that would make that film would be more interesting if they had a returning villain rather than going for a new villain this time, the next time, for the next film. Maybe I think that would be, an interesting thing to look at, maybe going back to one of the old villains, or having two of the old villains come back, But yeah, I mean, it was a really good film. I enjoyed it. I think it's a very good film to watch. I think it's definitely a film that I would watch again. I think, it's a funny film. All of the Paddington films, to be fairly honest with you, have been quite funny. I think I just love Hugh Bonneville. Like, he's just a fantastic, he just plays that role and plays the character of Mr. Brown so well. But yeah, really, really great film. I think if I had to give it a rating, I would say probably a 7 out of 10. I think there were maybe little. I don't know why I'm not gonna give it a perfect 10, but I think I don't feel like it's that perfect sort of 10 out of 10 film. Like, I don't think it kind of fits that. I don't think it's a sort of 10 out of 10 perfect kind of 10 out of 10 film. I think it wasn't. I mean, I won't say it was a spectacular film, but it was a good film. It was an enjoyable film. It was interesting, funny, entertaining, but I think that I just feel like it wasn't, for me, I just feel like, I don't know why, I just feel like Paddington in Peru wasn't as good as the previous two films. Like, there was just something about it that made it feel like it wasn't as good as the previous two films. I'm not saying that, it's completely trash compared to the previous two films, but it's certainly not as good as they were. I feel like Paddington 1 and 2 were so much better than Paddington 1 than what Paddington 3 was. I feel like Paddington 3 had potentially been a little bit better than it was. I mean, I'm not saying it's, as I said, I'm not saying it's a completely, rubbish film, but I'm saying it had potentially maybe been a little bit better. Maybe, I think it was... But it was a good film for the most, for the most part. It was a very, very good film, and I think it's a film that you would enjoy. I don't think it's a film that anyone would find boring. It's definitely one to take to film. It is a PG rated film, which means that there are maybe a few scenes in the film that might not be suitable for younger children. Like, to be honest with you, I don't know why they've rated that film PG, because I didn't actually see anything in that film that I would say wasn't necessarily suitable for younger children. That's just my opinion on it, is that I didn't really see anything in the film that would suggest that I thought was kind of not suitable for younger children. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I think it was a very good film. Well, it wasn't a very good film, but it was a decent-ish film. For the most part. As I said, I mean, I'm not saying I wasn't impressed by Emily Mortimer, who plays Mrs. Brown. But I wasn't a big fan of her. I just feel like I'm always going to prefer Sally Hawkins in that role. I just feel like she fits that role so much better at the moment. Like, I think if we see more of Emily Mortimer in the next film, maybe my opinion will change. But right now, I just feel like, she didn't fit in that role. That's what it felt like to me. It felt like Emily Mortimer just didn't fit in that role. It felt like, you know, it just feels like a role that belongs purely to Sally Hawkins. She played that character, you know, so well. And I kind of feel like Sally Hawkins was able to play the role of play that character of Mrs. Brown so much better than obviously Emily Mortimer was able to play that role. But I don't think that you know, really kind of, you know, it has too much of a negative impact on the film, but, you know, it doesn't make the film, you know, it doesn't make the film any less enjoyable. It's not one of those things that kind of takes away from the enjoyment of the film. For me, I think it's still enjoyable, even though Sally Hawkins isn't in it anymore. You know, I to be honest, I wasn't sure how it was going to be, how the film was going to be like without Sally Hawkins. I thought that, I thought that a lot of it would be quite, you know, negatively received, because obviously Sally Hawkins isn't in that role anymore, but, you know, it was still good. Now, there was one thing I'm a little bit confused with, what happened to the scene with Paddington and the Queen. Because before the film came out, there was reports, there was a report, I seen the reports that was saying that they were going to include, in somehow or another, they were going to include the scene like that Paddington did with the Queen a couple of years ago for her Platinum Jubilee, but we didn't actually see that scene in the film, despite the fact it was reported that despite the fact they said that scene was going to be included. I mean, maybe I missed it, but I just didn't see that. I don't think that scene was in the film as far as I'm aware of. I don't think it was, but it might have been, and I may have just missed it. But I think it was a really, I mean, as I said, 7 out of 10 film for me. You know, really not bad. Could have been a little bit better. Could have been a little bit, you know, but it's not completely unenjoyable. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I think you guys will as well. So that's just my little review there for you of Paddington number 3, Paddington in Peru. And it's got me very excited for what the future holds for the Paddington film series and for Paddington 4, which, as I said, is due out in either 2027 or in either November. And I've got to say it will be November 2027 or November 2028. I've got to say that they'll stick. I do think that they will stick with the November release date for the Paddington franchise. I don't think that's going to change. I think that the next Paddington film, Paddington 4, will stick. It will be a November release, which is why I'm saying, as I've said, 2027 or 2028, and I'm going to try and narrow that down a little bit, and I'm going to say it will be either November 2027 or November 2028 that we see Paddington number 4 released. That's just my early little prediction. As I said, I don't think that's something that will change, but maybe it's something that will change. Maybe they will release Paddington 4 in a different month. Maybe they will stick with maybe they will stick with the November releases. And I feel like it's a sort of film that does kind of suit a November release. To be honest, I think, you know, I don't have a problem with the Paddington films releasing in November. I think it's it's always, it's always nice. And the funniest thing was, it's like it came out the day before, right, like smack bang the day before my birthday this year as well. So that was like a nice little treat for me that the film happened to come out the day before my birthday on November 8th. So wasn't too bad, you know. But yeah, I would definitely recommend that people go and see it and decide for yourselves what you think of it, you know. Because I'm not going to try and influence you guys' decisions. I want you to go and watch the film for yourselves and just see what you think of the film. You know, see whether you enjoy it, see what story what rating you would give the film. But I hope you've enjoyed this little video, and I'll see you for another one maybe later on today or tomorrow. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.